I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Lancaster Affordable Housing Trust meeting of Thursday, September 5th, 2024 via Zoom. We are getting underway this evening at 7:03 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and it will be available on town hall streams, and it will be broadcast on the cable as well. I'm going to start with our roll call attendance. Trustee and Secretary Frank Streeter.
Here.
Trustee Deborah Williams.
Here.
Ex officio Trustee Kelly Dolan.
Here.
I don't see Trustee and Select Board Representative Jason Allison. Hopefully he will join us en route. And we have an opening on the trust. We had our last meeting with Carolyn Reed last week. That vacancy is posted on the town website. We have received a letter of interest that we will discuss later on this evening under correspondence. All right, so moving on. Approval of meeting minutes. Review and take action on the meeting minutes of May 2nd, June 6th, and August 1st, 2024. Frank circulated May 2nd and June 6th. Thank you, Frank. And thank you to Deb also, who was a pinch hitter for a meeting when Frank was out. Frank was out last month and I sent him the notes for our August meeting minutes, but he hasn't had a chance to format those yet and circulate them. So I propose that we table August 1st. I know Frank will send them out before our next meeting, but we could go ahead if the trust is amenable. We can go ahead and approve the other meeting minutes, May 2nd and June 6th. Is there a motion to do so?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Deb. Is there a second?
Given the absence of others, while the secretary shouldn't usually second the minutes, I second the minutes.
Thank you, Frank. Is there any discussion about those minutes? You've all seen them? No. Okay. We'll go ahead and vote on approving the meeting minutes for May 2nd and June 6th, 2024. Trustee Frank Streeter?
Yes.
Trustee Deborah Williams?
Yes.
Trustee and Chair Victoria Petracca, yes. So that motion passes. Frank, could I ask you to go ahead and send those two sets of minutes to the town clerk? Thank you.
Yep.
Great. All right. And we'll review August 1st as soon as Frank has a chance to format those for us and send them out. Next up, under scheduled appearances this evening, I'd like to say welcome to Nicole Ferguson. Nicole, thank you for being here this evening. We're delighted to have you. It's always nice when developers come in proactively and discuss things with us in a collaborative manner. So thank you for making time to be here. Nicole, for the public, the trust knows this already, but anyone watching this recording, Whitney Companies had written to the town to request a meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust to review the requirements of the inclusionary zoning bylaw. So that is the topic before us. They are an applicant, more specifically Zero Hilltop Road LLC is an applicant for an 18-unit subdivision on Hilltop Road. And this is for 18 homes, single-family homes. They would be home ownership units. There is a public hearing open at the planning board. I want to be clear that that public hearing was opened. So the project is before the planning board now. And under Lancaster's inclusionary zoning bylaw, the size of this subdivision does trigger the bylaw. And I think Nicole is here to just review that bylaw and make sure that we're all on the same page about requirements for that. Nicole, I'm happy to answer questions as best I can. I will say our planning director is not with us. He frequently attends our meetings, but there is a special meeting of the ZBA this evening. Unfortunately, he has that conflict that I think I told you about in an email. Yep. So I did want to say that at the outset and make that caveat that he is not with us, but we certainly can answer, I think, most questions. So.
Okay, yeah, like I had mentioned to you after the planning board meeting, I've got a lot of knowledge about like the local action type of units and stuff like that, because we've done 40B projects, so I'm very familiar on how all of this stuff works as far as regulatory agreements, all of that. I did go through the bylaw and I just did have some questions because some things weren't clear. So the first one was, so section K2, it states that the payment in lieu of units would be equal to 80% of the average listing price.
Yes.
And then later down on K6, it says that it would be that like 60 days before they would confirm the current market rates for the proposed development. So I just wanted some clarification on that because obviously those are two very different things. So I just wanted, are we going off listing price or are we going off of what the market price is?
I can clarify that. So we're definitely going off of the listing price. I think that the intent of the clarification in section K is to say that if those listing prices have changed, as things do over time, we just want to be sure that we're working with the most accurate information. So we don't want to calculate a payment in lieu, say now, and then in 6 months when listings may have changed, market conditions may have changed. We're just verifying 6 days out of what those listing prices are so that we're working off the most current information.
Okay. All right. And then, yeah, I just want to clarify on that because obviously those are two completely separate things.
Sure.
And then, so it's 80% of, I've been doing a lot of research on this. How did you guys come up with 80% of the average listing price? Because I've looked at other towns that have this in effect, and quite honestly, that is the highest that I've seen this. And I know you had mentioned at the meeting that you would prefer us to make the payment in lieu of units instead of building them, which it makes sense because obviously there's going to be higher expenses for these people that would be buying them. It's just that we're having a hard time grappling with that amount versus just building it and selling the house at a reduced price.
So let me back up for a minute. We have not, as the Housing Trust, we have not made any sort of official preference statement. I think you and I had talked after the planning board meeting to say that payment in lieu is most definitely an option for developers, and that in this instance, it may very well make sense, and that it could be something that we prefer at the Housing Trust, and we're open to it. But I just want to be careful. The Housing Trust has not made any kind of official recommendation or, statement. And this is quite frankly the first time that the Housing Trust is discussing it in a meeting. So, I just wanted to clarify that for the record. As far as how the bylaw was written, I'm happy to answer the question, but I do want to state that it is the bylaw and we cannot open the debate about the bylaw. It was voted on by Lancaster residents and passed and approved by the Attorney General's office. So it is our bylaw and it is 80%. When the bylaw was written, there was a committee formed and the committee studied inclusionary zoning bylaws throughout the Commonwealth and looking at a myriad of them and best practice. We also spoke with MHP and other affordable housing agencies about best practice and reviewed it with town council, and that was the 80% was the recommendation across the board. So it may seem high to you as a developer, but it is in fact to keep Lancaster. The spirit of the bylaw is to keep Lancaster on target for its affordable housing requirements under the state mandates. So every time, we're adding market rate housing in this town, our percentage of affordable shrinks. And so this is just treading water. This isn't even really making a dent in our deficit. It's just preventing us from sliding backwards with 18 market.
Yeah, no, which I totally understand, because I'm, like
Yeah.
I said, I'm very familiar with how all of this stuff
Great,
works.
great.
Like I said, it's just, when we look at the numbers, and I know this is a lot of times when rules are made and that type of thing, they're never looking at it from the perspective of who it is affecting, and that's someone that's in the business, you know what I mean? So like, we know the numbers of what it costs to build something, whereas the board probably isn't as familiar with how much that type, so that number just seems, because it's not even like the difference of what it would cost, like what we would be losing essentially if we went the other route. So it really kind of, there's not really another way to go besides just building those houses. So, which brings us to, I've got a couple of questions about how do you, so the houses in the development are all gonna be custom homes. These aren't gonna be spec homes. Most of the lots are going to be sold off, and they're just gonna, the owners will build to them. So how do we go about blending these homes in with the custom homes? Because some of them might be 3 bedrooms, some might be 4 bedrooms.
So it's all about the median in this case. So the inclusionary bylaw states that we're looking at the median for everything. So if you have 18 custom homes, they all have a bedroom count, for example. So that's a very quantifiable number. So we're going to want the median bedroom count.
Okay.
Okay. So, that's very easy to calculate. We're going to want similar, finishes and everything. Everything should be indistinguishable. So I appreciate that they're custom, but I assume that there's going to be a way to determine, average listing price or average price per home. The majority of the homes may have a particular type of siding on them. That's the siding that we would want. We're going with the median and the majority for the 2 deed restricted affordable units.
Okay.
So they don't stand out, so that the family living in one of those homes, isn't distinguishable by the appearance of their home.
Okay, so we just pick like a 3, so like say like most of them are 3-bedroom houses, we would just go pick a plan that's 3 bedrooms, because like I said, they're all gonna be completely different floor plans, that type of situation. And then we would just build a 3-bedroom house and try to make the outside look as comparable as possible.
Well, it would be the same. I mean, I don't think you have to guess about it, because it would be the same. It should be the same finishes. So for example,
well, if someone wants to put their entire exterior's brick, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's gonna be there's gonna be so many variables when it comes to that type of stuff. Someone does brick, someone does regular lap siding, someone, you know what I mean? So there's gonna be all kinds of different styles. Someone could go more of a craftsman style, you know what I mean? So that's where we're kind of stuck.
I think it's going to be, I don't think it's that complicated. I think that we can certainly look at the 18 types of homes. We can look at the average floor area. The homes for the affordable units should not be significantly smaller. They should match the average floor area. You could certainly indicate to us that X number of homes are brick, X number are wooden clapboard, X are, and we can figure out what the appropriate median finish is. If you're using granite inside in every home, then the affordable homes would have granite. It's that type of thing.
Well, I don't think the inside doesn't matter.
I think it does. Let me check.
Typically, that doesn't matter when it comes to local action units. Because even in apartments, when we build apartments, they can have lesser grade finishes on the inside. They just need to be indistinguishable from the outside.
That's actually not what the bylaw says.
Yeah, I was just going to check that to be sure, but I'm quite sure it mentions the interior, as Frank just said.
Similar features and built with comparable quality materials with respect to the market rate units built. They pretty much need to be identical. So, I mean, if everybody else has Wolf stoves and Sub-Zero refrigerators, then that's the standard.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of
It's in I just checked it. It's built with comparable quality materials with respect to the market rate dwellings built. Yeah, so.
okay. Okay, so yeah, we're just gonna end up having to build those houses last then, once we figure everything out. But I think that's definitely gonna be the way we're gonna go, is to end up building the houses.
So I don't believe you can build them last under the bylaw. I
Well, you're
think
saying that we have to figure out what everything else is going to look like. I'm not saying both houses, but like if we phase it, we're gonna end up having to build those houses last out of each phase. Because you're gonna wanna know what all the other houses are going to look like.
Actually, it has the section in there. If you look at section G,
it's G, yeah.
that gives you the steps that are involved.
G covers the timing of construction for affordable units. And G2 specifies that the building permit for the last market rate unit shall not be issued until all affordable units have been constructed.
Okay, so it's gonna have to be like second to last in each phase in order to determine. Because like I said, there's not really a way to figure that out until people start building their houses. Okay,
I did want to just make sure that you're aware too that at the affirmative marketing plan needs to be signed off on before building permits are issued. And I believe that the affordable deed restrictions have to be recorded as well before building permits are issued. So just so there's no surprise on that.
yep,
Good.
okay. Yeah, that's it, unless you have any other questions for me.
Just a quick one for you, Nicole. You obviously have a lot of experience in building affordable housing round and
Yep.
about, quite successfully, I'm told. Do you usually do multifamily? Have you done other single family affordable housing developments like the one you're proposing?
We haven't had to do single family stuff, but I'm very familiar with like the regulatory agreement process and stuff, because we've had to do that. A lot of it is the same. You guys just have some different wording, like the interiors, that's not something on a multifamily that the interiors, they don't care about if there's a difference in grade quality. It actually says that in the regulatory agreements. But for the most part, it's very similar when it comes to even like marketing them. We already work with a consultant that does that sort of stuff. So I've already gotten like pricing on like what the house would go for, all of that stuff.
Great.
Great.
Nicole, we look forward to following this, and we're here. We meet on the first Thursday of the month, so as questions arise, please reach out to Brian Keating, the planning director, but also feel free to come back to the Affordable Housing Trust. We'd like to work together and not avoid any surprises or any, make sure that you have all of the information that you need, that we have the information that we need, and so it's a smooth process for everybody.
Okay,
All right.
sounds good. right.
Okay. Thank you again, Nicole, for making time and coming in, and hopefully we're off to a good start on this aspect of your project.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole.
Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. The second scheduled appearance was Jason Allison, but I don't see him online tonight. Jason had requested the opportunity to speak about the Charter Commission. I had said that would be fine as long as it was within the scope of our mission at the Affordable Housing Trust. So I don't see him. He was on the agenda at our last meeting. We had a few folks absent, and he preferred that we table it and to do it when everyone was here, but now I don't see him. So I'm not sure if he's coming or not. If he does show up later in the meeting, we can always circle back to that. Let's just roll along to the next agenda item then. The transfer of community preservation funds to the Affordable Housing Trust. So I believe that we introduced this concept at the last meeting. So just to continue the conversation, Kate Hodges, our town administrator, sent her preliminary thoughts about how to make this happen. I circulated that to the Affordable Housing Trust members. Essentially, she's stating that it's by town meeting request. This would not be for the fall town meeting, so we have some time. She's proposing that we do this at the spring town meeting, which is wonderful because we have time to dot the i's and cross the t's. But in essence, it's something for housing trusts and conservation commissions to bring the CPA funds into an account that's dedicated to us, so that when a time-sensitive opportunity arises, we can move with greater flexibility and not have to wait for a town meeting to approve every single action that we'd like to undertake. Are there any thoughts about? I think Frank had a question about it. I don't know if you want to discuss that tonight, Frank. I don't know if Deb had any thoughts. If you had a chance to read Kate's bullets about how this would happen, the account that she described.
So I thought everything she had was great and made perfect sense, aside from the fact that the trust, the select board, and the FinCom would have to agree before the trust had the ability to spend funds that had already been allocated. And that was the only one I was looking at thinking, this doesn't totally make sense. And I would just want to hear, from council, how does that really work? I mean, Kate's an expert at this kind of stuff, so I certainly don't want to say that she's wrong, but if it's permissible, I would think that should just be the trust decision. But everything else Kate had in there about administration and the like, I thought was spot on.
Kelly, did you receive, I think you were copied on that email about creating the account for the housing trust?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that account, I actually been thinking more about it. I do have a question about, and I'm glad that Mr. Trussell is on this evening too, because FinCom was mentioned in her email. So if we're discussing the transfer of CPA funds, which CPA funds have their own rules surrounding them and how they operate, but we just got done talking with the developer who may decide to do a payment in lieu. I don't know. Now they're talking about building the units. But if that developer or another developer, decides to write a check, that goes into the account, but those are different rules. So we have this commingling of funds going on in this account. Is that okay? Or do we need separate, like a CPA pot and a payment in lieu or other pot?
Yeah,
Is it okay for all of this to commingle?
I don't believe they would commingle. Actually, I believe you would have two separate line items. So you would have two different accounts that you would choose from under the Lancaster Affordable Housing Trust. But the CPA funds would be its own line item, opposed to anyone who makes payments in lieu of the LAHT.
Okay, so they would be separated out.
Yes, because you're going to be
And,
subject to audits, and both would be separate audits.
Okay, and then Kate also mentioned in her email that in the event of an excess in free cash, this is all subject to town meeting vote. I want to be really clear about that. But she mentioned there could be a percentage allocated for affordable housing in Lancaster. Like if there was a budget surplus or something, would that
Yeah.
get its own line item?
So that would have its own line item, and for example, if that happened, someone like the developer, if they did a payment in lieu, it would go into that because it's strictly the Affordable Housing Trust. It's not, again, like CPA just has to stand alone, where
Yes.
you would, just like kind of recreation has, as an example, recreation has a recreation revolving account, and people can donate, to the recreation fund.
Okay.
But then we have other line items that are specific for Thayer Field, or, just items along those lines, I
Got
guess
it.
is the way I'm trying to
Okay.
say. Yeah, so one
Okay.
department, multiple accounts.
Okay, so we'd have these separate line items and then we get audited and we don't have a budget per se. I mean, we don't have, like the recreation folks, it is a department. It's a town department. We're not a town department. And we don't have staff, like paid staff. So we don't have a budget.
You don't have a budget, but you don't need to have a budget to create the account. So
Right, but
oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, Kelly. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wasn't clear why in Kate's email, she was referring to approval of our budget by the select board. We don't have a budget.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I got caught up on you thinking like you had to spend money from a certain budget. That could just be verbiage, like incorrect verbiage, or just, in her train of thought of stating that word. I can find out and I will. I actually have my own question, which was just going forward, what, so like next year's CPA funds, how much gets donated? And maybe she went over this and maybe I blew over it, but what's the percentage that goes into the Affordable Housing Trust each year? Was that in there?
No, it was not in her email, but it's 10. It's 10%
Got it.
is dedicated to affordable housing. And then we can make a request if we have a project that we're working on or some initiative. Well, we can make a request for additional funds that come out of the non-designated CPA funds. So the categories for CPA, it's affordable housing, it's recreation / conservation, it's historic preservation, and I'm forgetting something.
Those are the three categories. I think there are only three.
No, there's one more, I think. Is that it? Is there three?
There's
Oh, yeah,
three.
yeah, because recreation and
10,
conservation
10,
are
10,
together.
and 70.
Okay, so then there's this other money that can be used for those purposes, but it doesn't go directly into one of those line items, if that makes sense. So you can request, you can use your 10% and then say, look, we want an additional X out of the general CPA money. Did I answer your question, Kelly?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. I was just taking a note on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
I
yeah,
have
so
a
that's how it
follow-on
works.
question.
Yes, Frank.
So my understanding is once CPA money has been voted at town meeting and we've been assigned the 10%, I don't think we have another town meeting vote before we can vote to spend it.
No, we don't. We don't have to have another
It's
town
just
meeting. I'm just saying that
I
if
just
we
wanted to
want,
be clear about that.
right. No, I appreciate that, Frank. If we wanted additional funds that are not in our 10%, we have to go to town meeting for that. I mean, actually, first we go to the CPA committee, and if they bless that, then we go to the town meeting with it. Well, I think this is really good that we are getting the account set up. It's in the charter for the Affordable Housing Trust that there is an account. So it's good. It's the logical next step. I see Mr. Trussell has his hand raised. As long as it's tied to this agenda item, Dick, go ahead and just state your address, please.
Yes, thank you, Dick Trussell, 15 Burbank. It has to do with the payment in lieu group.
Yep.
Who CPA needs town approval before you spend a penny. Okay. Who or dictates whether you're allowed to spend? Let's say that group has sold a $600,000 homes and you had $960,000 in your coffers. Who dictates when and how you spend that money? That's not a CPA money. It's not a budget, operating budget money. It's a whole different group. And who says, yes, you can do it or cannot do it? Is it required to go to town meeting in any way?
It's a really good question. We haven't encountered it. I mean, the trust is still relatively young, so it's uncharted territory, but I have to believe that there is state law on this. I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, I'm just thinking of, say, DCAM, if, I don't know, there was something that we wanted to do at DCAM that made sense, and, do we have to go to, I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think to spend the payment in lieu, we have to go to a town meeting vote, because it's not taxpayer money.
So you could spend, let's say, $1 million with the approval of 3 people in town.
No, the Affordable Housing Trust would have to vote. And then if Kate's email is, I mean, at some point, town council has to weigh in, but her email is stating that
Well, basically,
the town, she says the town, the finance
approve it.
director and town administrator. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Go ahead.
Well, then you do think there is someone who controls whether you're allowed to spend it or not. Because other than that, it's only 3 members of your board that approve it.
Right.
You mean the FinCom or the select board?
I really don't know, Frank.
No, but Dick, I guess what I'm saying is, there are a variety of boards where 3 people can make a lot of spending decisions. But this
right,
is,
and I'm not questioning whether you have the right to do it. I'm questioning, is there any oversight on it by the town?
well, you come to all of our meetings. You make sure we don't screw around.
No, I'm not questioning intent. I'm questioning procedurally.
It's an excellent question, Dick. And obviously one we should do a little bit more research on.
I'm looking it up as we speak, so if I come across it,
I
I'll
do
say
believe
something.
that payment in lieu is very good, and you can, as Victoria said, you can probably build more houses smaller houses with $1 million than you can 2 with 600,000. So,
Which was the gist of my comment to Nicole after the planning board meeting. I wanted to be really clear for the record that the Affordable Housing Trust we haven't had a chance to debate this about whether we want her to build the units or do a payment in lieu. I just kind of casually said, yeah, I mean, payment in lieu is nice because we could probably build more units. Granted, they're not custom.
I guess the whole question is,
homes, but
what dictates how you spend the payment in lieu money?
so in Kate's email, it states that the town of Lancaster, through its collector treasurer, shall be the custodian of the funds. That is completely consistent with our charter. That's exactly what that's what our charter says. It's that there is an account that gets created, and it's the collector treasurer. She says collector treasurer. I don't know, collector treasurer, treasurer collector. Anyway, that person shall be the custodian. The collector treasurer shall invest the funds in the manner authorized by MGL, yada, 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 which again is consistent with our charter. So the money is invested, which is nice. It goes on to state that any income or proceeds by those investments become the property of the trust. Now, here's the part about oversight. Expenditures by the trust shall be processed through the town's payment warrant, but shall be subject to the provisions of MGL Chapter 44, Section 55C. The trust's approved annual budget, again, I don't think we have a budget, but shall be submitted to the TA to be adopted by the Select Board and Finance Committee before being sent to town meeting for final authorization. But I don't believe that applies to us because we don't have an annual budget. As custodian, the collector treasurer shall issue checks as directed by the Lancaster Affordable Housing Trust trustees upon approval from the finance director and town administrator. So if we were to say we wanted to go spend $1 million on an affordable housing initiative and directed the collector treasurer to issue such check, it would have to be approved by the finance director and town administrator in these bullet points.
I think that kind of depends how you are looking at the word approve. Because the question is that a way of exercising regulatory authority, i.e. it's really the town administrator's discretion as to whether it's spent, or simply regulatory compliance? In other words, we're about to spend $1 million. Let's really do it right and comply with procurement and all that good stuff, in which, Kate is an expert.
Well, I think it means that you cannot issue your own check. It must be issued through an approved warrant check by the finance group. In other words,
that's not what this says, though.
You cannot contract with a contractor and pay him your money without getting the town to approve the warrant to pay that money.
But interestingly, Dick, that is not what I completely appreciate what you're saying, and I'm hearing you. It's just that that's not what this says. This says,
I know.
It says, as custodian, the collector treasurer shall issue checks as directed by the trustees upon approval from the finance director and town administrator.
And that right there, that's the point. That's where the warrant comes in, that the select person goes down and signs every week.
It doesn't mention warrant. It just
I
says
know it's not used as that
That's
term,
just the
but-
process. The warrant is the process.
Yeah,
it
it's
mentions
not,
warrant back under annual budget, but it doesn't
No, but
mention it here.
I think you're using the same word in two different ways. There's
Okay.
the warrant for the annual town meeting, and
That's
then
not what I'm saying.
Dick and Kelly are talking about, which is the thing that's got to be signed every week so people get paid. And I think the real issue we're asking is you have to have that process for the town to issue money. It's whose authority is that money issued under?
Right.
You have,
Yeah,
must
and
have
then
regulatory compliance, no matter what.
I don't
It's
know,
just a
it's
little
just worth
confusing.
investigating. Perhaps we can thrash it back and forth and not come up with any answer. Why don't we just try and get someone else to answer for us?
I think that we've gone round and round, and I think it is a little confusing because it mentions that the budget goes to the select board and finance committee for approval, but then these checks, it doesn't mention, it just says finance director and town administrator. I think we've got plenty of time, before the spring town meeting. Kelly, is, as our new assistant town administrator, is this something you could take on and report back to us at our next meeting to get clarity?
I've already emailed Kate and I am currently looking at the MGL as we speak. So I will have
Okay.
a confirmation for you all shortly.
That's fantastic. And then as soon as you have info, go ahead and forward it. I mean, and then we can discuss it at our meeting. But if you can forward it ahead of time, we can digest it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Because I know myself, I have to read some of this stuff like 5 times before it penetrates the brain. So it's very complicated. So
I hear you.
okay, great. So the good news is we're on the way to having an account for funds, and then we just want to do things the right way and make sure that we're spending funds appropriately and following all the right rules. So, but I also appreciate Frank's point that we don't also want to add unnecessary layers of approvals and vetting. I mean, yes, we want oversight, don't get me wrong, but we also don't want like unnecessary layers that just bog us down. And meanwhile, we miss the boat on some opportunity. Does that sound reasonable? Yeah. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying we go rogue and just do our own thing, but I mean, oversight is good. Checks and balances are good, but too much of that stuff can be problematic. Okay. Alrighty. Well, thank you, Kelly, for taking that on for us. And I'm moving along in the agenda. Just stop me if I'm going too quickly. Update on the housing production plan. The main message I have this evening is that I didn't understand that community scale was coming back to see us at the Housing Trust. We voted at our last meeting to go ahead and move this to move the draft to the select board and planning board for approval in a joint presentation, with the caveat that they incorporate the feedback from our June meeting, the housing forum in July, and our August meeting. But I was in correspondence today with Brian Keating and Nels Nelson from Community Scale, and they very much want to come back and present their final product to us. So I'm okay with that. Their timing is such that he initially was like, I can do it tonight. And I said, no, it wasn't on our agenda. I think that the folks in town need ample opportunity to see it on an agenda if they want to show up and so forth. So they're going to come to our October meeting and present the final report. They'll give it to us in advance so we can read it. And then we know exactly what is going to the select board and planning board. They are talking about a planning board and select board presentation on Monday, October 21st. And it would be theoretically approved but who knows? I'm not going to speak for the planning board and the select board. I don't know what they will decide to do, but that is the night of the presentation, Monday, October 21st. So again, our meeting is on October 3rd. They come in, they present. This is Community Scale, comes in and presents at our meeting, and then off to the select board and planning board on October 21st. And then if approved by planning board and select board, it then goes to the state for approval, and then it's good for 5 years. It's half of being in safe harbor. It's the other half is building units, but you have to have an approved housing production plan. So,
Victoria, for what
yes.
it's worth, there is no planning board meeting. It would usually be on Monday, the 14th of October. That's Columbus Day. So there will be no planning board meeting between the time that the plan is presented to the trust and the joint meeting with the select board. I don't know if that's material for you, but I felt you should know.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Frank. I'm completely comfortable with them going straight to that joint meeting with select board and planning board. Right.
Perfect, because that's what you're going to be doing.
Right. Anything about the housing production plan this evening? I just have to say, it's a pleasure to work with Community Scale. Like they're very professional. Just on a side note, it's really been a lovely experience. Like they do what they say they're going to do. And if they say they're going to send something, a draft or something on such and such a date, they actually do that. So I just want to give kudos where kudos are due. I've found them to be quite professional, and their work, I really liked what they presented at the forum and their attitude about feedback and being receptive to feedback. So, and they've had really good suggestions for us. So, all right. The affordable housing series, agenda item number 6. So thank you, Kelly, and also a big thank you to Caitlin Roy from Health and Human Services. Caitlin is our main point person now on this, and I'll just read off our list of presentations that are coming up for the public. These are being advertised in Lancaster. Hopefully we get good turnout. Director of Bigelow Gardens, Danielle Fahey. I believe it's Fahey, right, Kelly, her last name?
That is correct.
Okay, Danielle Fahey, Director of Bigelow Gardens, was going to speak on Public Housing 101 on September 10th at 10 a.m. Former trustee Carolyn Reed from Habitat for Humanity is going to talk about Habitat's mission and how they fit into affordable housing. which is not public housing. So we will have public housing first, and Bigelow Gardens is our only example of that in Lancaster. But she's going to talk about public housing as a model. Carolyn's going to come in on September 24th at 10 a.m. These are all at the community center, and talk about Habitat and their niche and the kind of affordable housing that they build and who is eligible for that. And then ClearPath, I'm super excited about this. ClearPath is coming in to talk about veterans housing loan programs on September 25th at 5:30 p.m. RCAP Solutions will speak on rural community housing assistance on October 8th at 10 a.m. And then they're coming back on October 15th to talk at 5:30 p.m. By the way, Kelly, do you know if these are going to be recorded and available for folks to watch at their leisure if they can't make it to, say, a 10 a.m. in the morning meeting?
They are not. I apologize, but we can see if there's something we can do if we do this again where we can get that in there.
Well,
It's not something we normally can do in the LCC, but if these were held in more of like the Nashway room, it makes it a lot easier.
Can we just move them to the Nashway room so we can record them so they're on cable, and for a person who is perhaps interested but has to go to work at 10 a.m., they could watch it at home later?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk with them. Yeah, and first get approval from folks, and I can see what I can do about that. Yeah.
That's what we did with the housing forum. Initially, the housing forum was in a room in the library, and then we moved it to the Prescott building so it could be on Zoom. And we did have people show up on Zoom for that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to see what we can do. I will make a note of that right now.
Awesome. And it's far enough out that, hopefully we can do that. I just think the more people that have access to this information, particularly income eligible folks, the better.
Absolutely.
All right.
Victoria, would
Yeah.
you please email me whatever it was you were reading so I
Yes,
can
I
put all
will.
those dates and things in the notes?
You
Kelly?
have it. I'm reading from the notes from the August 1st meeting.
Oh, okay, great.
You have it. It's in those notes from August 1st.
Perfect.
And then lastly, I'm speaking on the role of the Affordable Housing Trust in Lancaster and why we exist and what we do. That presentation is on October 23rd at 9:30 a.m. So I am completely stoked about this. 5 different organizations, all very different, but all addressing affordable housing. This is public outreach, it's education, it's for not only, it's primarily for income eligible folks, but it's also for our residents who just want to understand affordable housing and what it is, what it isn't, demystify it, debunk any stereotypes or any myths about affordable housing, and just make it very user friendly. So thank you, Kelly, for getting the ball rolling on this and bringing Caitlin in. She's been great to work with on it. So, all right. Oh, this is at no cost to the town, by the way. All these people are speaking free of charge. So there's obviously no cost to attend, but there's also no cost to Lancaster to bring these folks in. Next up, updates to our SHI pipeline. I really don't have updates on much. The 40R, we had Bob DePietri in, I think it was just a few meetings ago. And other than going to the planning board to get their road design approved, there's nothing else going on right now. The 2 investors are still in court hashing out their difference of opinion on something. Neck Farm Estates, that actually, I do have an update on that. Neck Farm Estates, so the developer went to the ZBA with a reduction of 1 unit, so 11 units drops to 10, and then consolidation of the project into 2 buildings instead of 3 buildings. So we now have 10 units in 2 buildings. One of the lovely things about that concession is that folks will remember that one of the structures, the large barn-like structure, was quite close to a sidewalk, and there was a lot of concern about that for visibility for traffic. By eliminating one structure, they're able to move that barn back and open up that corner for greater traffic visibility. So they're really, I think, addressing the predominant concerns, which, number of units and then the number of structures and then that corner of the visibility on that corner. So they brought that to the ZBA as a proposal. ZBA was amenable and said, yeah, go ahead and do the designs on that. The developer was holding off. If the ZBA was not amenable or for whatever reason, thought that wasn't enough or something, they weren't going to, spend the money on all those new engineered drawings, but they got the green light from the ZBA, so they're working on those now, or they worked on them and they've been submitted to the ZBA, and the ZBA is meeting tonight, a one-topic meeting tonight, the same time as the Affordable Housing Trust, to review those drawings as a working session. And that's going on right now. So I'm very excited to see what comes of that. But it's always nice when developers hear feedback and make changes to their projects based on what the town thinks and the residents think. Laurel Hill, I have no update. I don't know if you at the planning board, Frank, if you speaking with your planning board hat, have any updates. We don't have
I do.
Brian here.
I do, in that the issue of having Habitat build the affordable units has apparently come back because they are discussing some professional arm of Habitat building them. I don't really have any specifics beyond that. I have not heard anything official. This just came out in Brian's summary to the planning board today. But they will be in front of the planning board on Monday, 7 p.m. via Zoom. So we'll all find out a little bit more.
Okay, when is that meeting again? This coming Monday?
That is this coming Monday, the 9th, 7 p.m.
Okay, I will, I'll reach out to Brian to find out more about that, but just as a reminder, just to state for the record, the Affordable Housing Trust submitted an official communication voted on by Housing Trust members to the planning board, stating that the units need to be in that development, need to be indistinguishable. It's very important for the residents in those units that their units, and this particularly for the children in those units, that they not look any different, that they're not substandard to the median of the rest of the units. And just as we do not identify which units are deed restricted affordable, we also don't advertise it by the fact that they look completely different or sit on smaller lots or have less money invested into them. So with all my true appreciation of Habitat for Humanity as an outstanding organization, we stated in our official communication to the planning board that it would be entirely inappropriate for Habitat to construct these with volunteer labor alongside the other units in this very same development. Habitat, speaking with Carolyn with her Habitat hat on, also pointed out that they have a floor area ceiling that these proposed market rate units would almost certainly exceed. So as I've said to the developer, as I said in my correspondence that we sent, Habitat has a voice in this, and it's important that the developer not speak on behalf of another organization. So I'll leave it at that. But I will go to that meeting and find out more, and I'll also speak with Brian about it. But I'll speak for myself as chair. I feel very strongly that it is antithetical to affordable housing best practice to construct substandard units in the same development and call them out or have them be, the affordable units. Probably said enough about that. I think I made my point.
Well, the people on the Whitneys cannot say that you're treating them differently than other developers.
Well, that's just it.
I mean, the identical point, and I'm sure that town boards are going to have to make that point consistently over time. And it's just, it's how it is. People would like to do things differently because it's easier, and you certainly cannot fault them for that.
Right.
But
okay. I just don't, I mean, this is like our third go around making this point to the developer. I'm not sure what they're not hearing. I don't know. I mean, I've corresponded with them directly. I've corresponded via Brian. I've corresponded via the planning board. Okay. That was Laurel Hill. So thank you, Frank, for letting us know about that. And then next was Hawthorne Hill, which we obviously we already discussed with Nicole Ferguson this evening. And then the last one is our property rehab. Gosh, that does not have a building permit. The developer has not come back to the building department to apply for a building permit for the for that building. So the building sits there unoccupied. They did work on the outside, and that was all right. They did get permission to work on the outside of the building, but they have not applied for the interior building permit. It was a bit unusual. The building permit got split in half. They got an initial exterior only, but they have not applied for the interior, and thus we are unable to put that on Lancaster's SHI because it's a requirement to include the building permit with the application, with the SHI application. I did try. I mean, I sent the exterior, and the state kicked it back and said, yeah, we need the interior building permit, which is normal. They need it. So that sits there on our pipeline, but no news from the developer in quite some time. So, but it cannot be rented. That affordable unit cannot be rented. Obviously, they haven't rehabbed the inside of it yet. So, number 8, updates to existing SHI. We don't have any. No announcements of anybody leaving, nothing coming up for renewal. No news there. Correspondence. We received a letter of interest from resident Kristen Briner. Did everyone have a chance to review that? Yeah. Any thoughts or comments about the letter of interest?
Have you actually met with her?
No, I haven't met with her. I read I haven't had a meeting with her. I've spoken with her briefly. I personally I want to let you guys speak. I drone on and on and on, but I personally thought it was a lovely letter myself, but I'm open to other points of view.
She appears to have relevant experience. I've never met her, so I can't comment beyond that. I just always think it's always a good idea just to get, FaceTime with somebody in advance if you can. But there was, nothing I saw there, or honestly, in a very cursory look online, stress the cursory part. But there was nothing that jumped right out. So, seems reasonable, and it's nice to have a volunteer who has some experience.
Oh, here it is. I have the letter right here.
You can't always have a president from Habitat.
That's right. I know. Deb, any thoughts? Did you have a chance to read the letter?
Yeah, I did. I didn't do a lot of other, looks into her. I don't know her or haven't met her, so it's a very professional letter, and like Frank said, she seems to have some experience, but more than me. But yeah, I just defer to everybody else. Like I don't have, I shouldn't say I defer to it, but
you think she would be a reasonable addition and good motivations and all that. So, I really liked that she mentioned her work experience in Section 8 housing, property management, commercial construction, specializing in multifamily communities. That's all right up our alley. So,
so she submitted this like back in April or something, and
yes,
it wasn't really posted until.
No, we were talking about at that point. So Carolyn Reed had announced at one of our meetings that she would be moving in the summer. So it was out there in our meetings. So yeah, so she was interested in the position, but it wasn't officially posted. So the town, my understanding is that looking at the letter, it looks like she sent it to the select board and copied Kate Hodges and myself. But the select board couldn't do anything with it because at that point, Carolyn Reed had not resigned. Carolyn was simply giving us a heads up, which was really helpful. She was giving us a heads up that she would be moving this summer. And she just wanted, she didn't want to just do one of those like emails that says, I resign effective immediately. I'm gone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Which is like, oh, gee, now we have to scramble around. So she was just giving us lots of notice. She knew she would be moving this summer. So we knew it was discussed at meetings, openly here, online. And yeah. But then Carolyn didn't actually send in her resignation. By the time the closing got done and the house got sold and the yada, 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 it was like August 7th when she actually sent it. And then the town clerk's office acted really quickly and posted it, like, I want to say like the next day. So it's up there right now. It's on the town's volunteer opportunities.
Yeah.
So it's posted. It is officially posted, which is why this letter from April now becomes relevant.
Mhm. Well, she seems to have some relevant experience, but also experience that wouldn't be taking place in Lancaster or unlikely to. So therefore that she should not be conflicted.
Right. Good point. Yeah.
Right.
You know, we need people that are not going to have to recuse.
Right.
Very much agree. Kelly, any comments, any thoughts?
Just wanted to add that she is scheduled, she's on the select board agenda for the 16th, so 2 weeks from now.
That's helpful. So presumably she could be, I mean, I haven't seen any other letters of interest, but if the select board is amenable to her background and credentials and interest, she could be appointed at that meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Would the board entertain a motion to submit feedback to the select board on this? How do you feel about that? It's totally up to what do you think?
I was going to ask you that if that's what we were talking about, other than just getting our initial response to the letter. I don't know. I don't
feel like voting on
I don't feel like
Okay.
voting on it either.
So that's
you,
fine.
You go.
No, I'm happy to go. I just didn't, I mean, I always want to be careful that I'm speaking on behalf of members and not just me individually spouting off about something. So, I mean, I'm in favor of her candidacy. If the board is in favor of her candidacy, I would express that to the select board. I think it's always helpful for them to have feedback when they make these appointments. When someone has resigned midterm and they're appointing someone, I think they look to the board in question, like, how do you feel about this, kind of thing. Or in this case, it's nice because we don't have multiple candidates and we're not saying like ranking them or anything. But I don't have to do that. I mean, I'm very happy to give them some feedback. I think it's helpful, but if you don't feel that that's appropriate for any reason, I won't do that.
It's just, I think, a little difficult for us to say, well, we recommend someone that we actually have never met or sat with. For instance, when this happens for library trustees, there's a vetting process on the library's part, and this person has shown up for a few trustees meetings to, see how it goes, talk to people, etc., which greatly informs the process.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is entirely the select board's purview.
Okay, and I'm not going to do that. I think that's a very valid point. She's not here. We're not meeting with her. She's not an agenda item. We don't have a meeting before the select board meets, so I'll show some restraint and not.
I encourage you, try to have coffee with her or something, so then you can go to the select board meeting and say, I've met with this person and I think they're qualified. Or you can hem and haw and go, gosh, really no. Hopefully that won't be the case. Hopefully, have a nice coffee.
If I show up,
great.
If I show up at the select board meeting and I speak, I will speak as chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, but I don't want to speak on your behalf if you haven't had the chance to meet her. So I'll just state that it's my opinion as the chair, she has not been to our meeting to meet the rest of the trustees. I think it's important that I clarify that.
I would add that, but that you did speak to your board about her and that you all reviewed her letter and found,
Yes.
just that
Yeah.
she has clearly interest and experience that would meld into the scope of what the Affordable Housing Trust is doing.
I think that's a lovely approach. Does that sound fair, Housing Trust members? Okay, so I'll state that you had the opportunity to review the letter. We discussed the letter at the meeting, and that I individually, had a coffee or something. And yeah, okay.
As chair, you are delivering the sense of the board rather
Yes.
than a vote of the board. And I think that there is a subtle but important difference.
That
But as
feels
chair, you
comfortable to me.
represent the board.
Yeah, no, that feels comfortable to me and accurate. I just want to be accurate and not step on toes. So good. All right. That was the first thing under correspondence. And then the second thing under correspondence, I just want to be, I'm always trying to be transparent. Frank and I had a conversation that I just want to relay to you, Deb, and to Kelly Dolan as well, and just to state publicly. So the bylaw that Lancaster had on the books for accessory apartments was amended. You will remember that we, with direction actually from Carolyn Reed, she's the one who brought this to our attention, we encouraged residents to vote for this by right accessory apartment amendment. So essentially, we stripped away a lot of the red tape in the bylaw, and we made accessory apartments a by right use in Lancaster. Well, it just so happens that the state felt the same way, and we were just a little bit out in front of them. And the state has passed a change that makes accessory apartments a by right thing in the state code. So we need to simply align our bylaw with the state's version of by right. And so there are these amendments that need to now be made. They're both by right in both versions, they're by right, but there are some subtle differences between them. So Frank and I spoke about this, who would take the lead. We decided that it would be fine for Frank and the planning board with the planning director to work on that. The building inspector will weigh in as well. Those changes will be sent to us. We'll have a chance to review them, and then they'll go to a town meeting vote.
Yeah.
So I just want to be out, discussing this in public so that the Housing Trust is aware that all of the work that we did, it wasn't that it was for nothing and now we have to go back and revisit it. It was great. We were out in front. We made it by right. You can have an accessory apartment by right. That's terrific. We were leading the charge. We were out in front, even in front of the state. And now we're simply backtracking and making sure that our local bylaw is compliant with state regulations.
And for the record, I think the change is really fairly minor in that our bylaw says you have to be no more than 50% of the size of the other building, whereas in the state, you can build up to 900 square feet. It doesn't really matter the size of the other building. And we also have to check in terms of transit, because if you're within half a mile transit, as however it is defined, then you don't have to require parking, for instance, and there are a few other things. So we're going to have to spend, I'm sure the AG's office will issue some guidance about this. And I suspect that town council, we're not their only client. We're not the only town that's going to be dealing with this. So I would think long before the spring, we could come up with appropriate text. The planning board can post and hold a hearing. I don't think it's going to be particularly controversial because we're just matching state law. But the way the state law is written, I don't believe owner occupancy can be required. So again, this is the sort of thing to check up on, because you're going to have a variety of people saying very legitimately, well, this means multifamily zoning just is everywhere in Lancaster now. So, there may be there may be some quote unquote marketing that has to be done, but it's state law. You know, it's
Right.
not as if we particularly have a choice. I mean, we
also-
led state law and the town liked it. Now state law is leading us a little bit. It's just a matter of playing catch up. I don't personally see that it's necessarily going to be super controversial, but it's definitely going to be something that some people are going to have some concerns about. And so, you know, we're just going to have to address that. Because again, it's
I'm very
state law.
happy that this is for the spring. I'm very happy this is for the spring town meeting.
Me too.
Because the fall town meeting, Kelly, are we talking about, did I read October 7th for the fall town meeting?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Right around the corner, literally a month away.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Well, that was the gist of that second item under correspondence. I just wanted to put it out there in the public, so we're catching up. We're just going to align our bylaw with the state regs, and yeah, so that's what's happening there. But it's great that we can have, by right accessory apartments now, because although they're not deed restricted affordable, it's affordable housing with a lowercase a, creating smaller units and solutions for people to, particularly seniors that want their own place, but with some oversight from maybe a family member. So I'm really excited that we passed it, and now we're just fine tuning it and doing some housekeeping with the new state regs. Is there any public comment this evening? I'm not seeing Dick Trustle's hand up. Is there any new business this evening? One thing I wanted to put down under new, or ask about under new business, is Deb, is there any news on, or Kelly might know, on DCAM? We had a very exciting update at our last meeting from you. I think it was like the highlight of that meeting. It was so exciting to hear that you had researched the act, that it had gone through the House, the state.
On the last day, yeah.
Yeah, and then it went to the Senate, then it went to the governor's office. Do you know, did Kate have her meeting with Mass Development? Do you know? Maybe Kelly knows.
Well, what I do know is that last night at the select board, we did have a meeting with them, and I believe we are going with instead of the 40R, going with the iPod proposal for them to move forward next. Are you aware of any of this or heard of this?
No. Are we talking about the DCAM site?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes. I'm happy
I
to
didn't
just
know
double
that
check.
iPod was on the table.
Hold on.
Has the-
Maybe I'm
Okay.
misspeaking. Hold on.
No, it's possible. I just hadn't heard anything about this, and I know that
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I'm just double checking, but it was that was not what they were charged with, but you just have to give me a second. I'm going to bring up the agenda. My notes are, of course, in my office, but I'm going to bring up the agenda real quick.
That's okay.
Deb, I don't know if you had any other updates while I look, but you're happy to
No,
jump
I haven't really had a chance to.
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I also am not sure if I missed something from before.
In a nutshell, Kelly, I mean, Deb, feel free to paraphrase it yourself, but Deb had done some really good research on where this stood in the legislature and discovered that it actually had cleared the House, cleared the Senate, went to the governor, and
Oh.
she spoke with Kate, and Kate was due to meet with Mass Development like within that week or something. So it was all
Right.
very exciting for us.
Correct.
This is the most exciting minutes of our meeting last time. I was just blobbity-blying on about this and that, and then we got to DCAM, and Deb like floored us with her research. So
Look at you.
it was awesome.
Yeah, so it was number 5 on the select board last night. So I heard about that. Basically, I certainly don't want to misspeak, so we can wait until the minutes come out. But article number 5 is Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance, DCAM, Sale Partnership Agreement, Zoning Options, and Mass Development Grant Process Outline. It was again, I don't want to misspeak, but basically we have to go with one or the other. I know there was conversation basically being that 40R, if it went through with 40R, what that does is it actually puts us, I guess, almost over the threshold of our percentage, or close.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I
No, no, that's
interrupted.
okay. No, that's okay. Or close there too, which would then impede, if I'm understanding correctly, that it would then impede with future developments. And yeah, I just don't want to misspeak here, but that they basically need to have a charge of doing one or the other. And it was voted on to move forward with the iPod practice at this point. But I'm just also trying to do two things at once and look up.
When you say it was voted on the select board?
Yes.
So I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but nobody has come to the Affordable Housing Trust. Has anybody gone to the planning board, Frank, with any of these proposals?
This is all completely news to me.
Completely new to me as well.
Yeah, and
Okay,
all
hopefully I'm not.
rezoning,
Oh, go ahead.
all rezoning needs to go through the planning board. So I'm glad the select board's taking a look at this, and I'd love to hear more about their thoughts. I couldn't be at last night's meeting.
Yeah, again, I'm happy to get the official here, but I mean, I'm just giving you kind of the paraphrasing of what definitely did go down yesterday.
I was at my daughter had school orientation last night, so I was off at school orientation, but I can't believe that we're moving forward on a zoning without having had a chance
Well, let's make sure I don't do
Okay,
anything
okay.
silly here and say the wrong things.
And Kelly,
Um,
don't interpret my voice or my surprise as directed at you or a person. It's just like the process is surprising to me. That's all.
Yeah, I know there was just something about the iPod zoning being kind of a more in line with the neighborhood, something along again, I just don't want to speak because I wasn't at this meeting. I was at the select board. I'm talking about your one before this. But I do believe that that was what was happening with the group. But again, I can confirm and get back to you momentarily.
Just right out of the gate, I just want to say something. There is no well, the iPod doesn't have an affordable housing requirement in it. I'm just thinking inclusionary zoning does. So it would probably trigger inclusionary zoning based on the number of units. So we would get the affordable through the IZ requirement, but not through the iPod. That's just something. I also think about the residents in that neighborhood. I mean, it would be lovely to have the opportunity to get feedback from the neighborhood and I don't know if maybe that's part of the plan. I don't want to say, speak out of turn. Maybe I just don't know what's going on. I'm learning this like on the fly. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
But again, Kelly, you're just the messenger. I don't mean to.
I think I thought I guess I didn't follow the select board. I thought I looked at agendas, but I knew there wasn't one Monday, so I didn't know it was last night. So, yeah, I don't know, kind of.
Yeah, because the holiday they had to move
Yeah.
it. And again, I can tell you in confidence, I don't think this was the original scope. Again, I think this is definitely a pivot move, but I just don't want to misspeak on anyone in regards to the reasoning behind any of it. But I'm just happy to inform if you want me to, have Kate perhaps give a detailed response to the vote.
I'm gonna go back and watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to go back and watch it now, but it's like, I thought that, I guess what I was envisioning, Kelly, and I'll just give this feedback to you and you can do with it what you want, but in my utopian vision of urban planning, I thought that we were having charrettes and talking with all the stakeholders, like the neighbors and the various boards that have an interest, say Council on Aging and seniors and Veterans Affairs and Affordable Housing Trust and Economic Development Committee. And, similar to the process for the asset disposal of the golf course in Stowe, where they brought in an urban planner to oversee those charrettes and get all the input. And then they came up with a lovely master plan. I kind of was envisioning something like that, where anybody in town could come and be a part of the process. And certainly before we got to zoning changes, we'd talk about like visions and things. but is it cart
Yeah.
before the horse to say we're like putting down?
Well, if our target, if our timeline's still the same, I think there is a somewhat of an urgency to do something by, isn't it December or something like that? I don't know. Would that be 18 months, the end of the year? Did it take a year to go through? Am I wrong about that? I don't know.
No, there is a deadline, but I mean, we're working with, the state wants this to go well too. And I would think that if we outlined a process to the state and said, look, we need an extra 2 months or something, or whatever it is, because we're going to have these public forums about a very unique, rare, large site, and getting community input, I would have to believe they'd be amenable to it. I see Mr. Trussell has his hand up. Dick, would you like to add something to this conversation?
If I may, 15 Burbank Lane. How, if in any way, and I think it is related, are we dealing with DCAM and MBTA?
Yeah,
I'm very
great
concerned
point.
that the whole MBTA question is also part of this.
Absolutely. Great point.
I
don't have an
I haven't
answer.
heard anything about MBTA, and tonight is the first thing I'm hearing about iPod. So
Yeah, I mean,
guess there's a
that's
lot going on.
no kidding. We've got to crack the nut on our MBTA requirement, and we're not sure at this juncture whether we're going to get the MBTA credit for the North Lancaster project. We don't know if the North Lancaster project is going through. That's at a standstill. So DCAM could, potentially be the MBTA solution, but you have to think ahead to that. So I don't know.
Well,
I
the
just
other
wanted
issue-
to be considered, that's all.
Of course, you're absolutely right. That definitely should be in the mix as well.
The other issue that we're going to have, as you all remember from the process for rezoning in North Lancaster, is that once there's a rezoning proposal, the planning board is required to hold hearings on it. And
Right.
if those hearings are controversial, when they may be, they could stretch for a period. So and of course, whatever zoning change comes through must also be approved by town meeting and the Attorney General's office. So this is not a particularly swift process, as I think people can remember from the rezoning in North Lancaster. So I just hope all and sundry are aware of that.
And I guess
'Cause
we could, to wrap it up too. I appreciate that, Frank. And to wrap it up, because I don't want to go on and on about this topic, but Kelly, we've been saying at the Housing Trust, even like before you came on board in Lancaster, like we so very much want to be a part of the process at DCAM. Like I can't tell you how many times we've talked about DCAM here as a board, and how going back to before even we had a housing trust. I mean, we have been trying to do affordable housing over there, and not just affordable housing to check off a box, but to do it with best practice, to do it with particular concern for diverse populations that, I'm getting a little tongue-tied because it's such an important and unique site. And to find out that it's like, moving this quickly, I guess I want to reiterate to the town administration that the Affordable Housing Trust very much wants to be a part of this process and wants to be a part of the planning for the affordable housing and its inhabitants. And I can't say it enough, like underline that and highlight that and put that in bold in the notes, because that's like, it's one of the top sites for us. And we've been so patient, and we just want to be a part of the process. That's all.
Absolutely. Will do.
And again, my enthusiasm isn't, don't take it the wrong way.
Oh, no, I'm not at all.
You're doing us a favor by bringing this to our attention, because I was at a school orientation. Frank was someplace else. We had no idea this was going on last night. So,
Understood. No,
I mean, it
I'm
was
not
on the
taking it in any way.
okay, thank you. Anything else before we move on from new business? Kelly, I think you're going to give us notes, not tonight, but at some point about the affordable housing seminar that you attended.
Yes, I will put a packet together of the seminars I attended, and I will send it forward to you guys for your review or reading, light reading, if you will, when you wish to do so.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, just the knowledge transfer, you had the benefit of that half-day seminar out there in Sturbridge in
Yes.
July, and it would just be great to reap the benefits across the board for the, for the housing trust. So that'd be great. Okay, thank you so much in advance. What else? Communications. So our next Affordable Housing Trust meeting is Thursday, October 3rd at 7 p.m. via Zoom, and then followed by Thursday, November 7th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. And I don't have any other communications this evening. Is there anything else before we adjourn, Housing Trust members?
I move
No?
we adjourn.
Thank you, Frank. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Deborah. And is there a any discussion on that? Nope. All right. We'll just do a quick vote to adjourn. Trustee Streeter,
Yes.
Trustee Williams,
Yes.
and Trustee Petracca. Yes, we are adjourned, Housing Trust at 8:29 p.m. Thank you.